This meeting in the Margate City Planning Board is called to order. Please stand for the flag salute. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom Collins, Clem Wozleski, Mike Richmond, Jim Galantino, Margaret Gubernalti, Mike Cristaldi, Craig Palmisano, David Carter, Despina Hess, Remy Pelosi, Joe DiGirolamo, Rich Patterson.
Here. This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. All applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of September 17th and September 24th, 2015.
Make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None. Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of decisions and resolutions. Number 39, 2015, John Irons. Number 40, 2015, Jerry and Freda Shevitz. Number 41, 2015, Ron Holliday and Robert Mooney. Number 42, 2015, David and Teresa Diana. Hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. First case is East Shore Development Company, LLC, 8706 Atlantic Avenue, Block 17, Lot 10, in the S40 district to grant a C variance for front setback for house and porch on Atlantic Avenue and Pembroke Avenue, third floor deck, pool, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin. Yes, I do. The subject property is an existing house to be demolished and replaced on a lot of 3,791 square feet with 70 feet of frontage on Atlantic Avenue, 55.5 feet along Pembroke. The proposed house by architect Peter Weiss contains 3,074 square feet in a 2.5-story configuration with 5 bedrooms plus a loft and a den, 3 parking spaces off Pembroke Avenue. The house is designed with a swimming pool at the level of the first floor porch on Pembroke, appearing to be open but unroofed. Variances required are number 1, front setback for the house on Atlantic, 14 feet required, versus it is designed at 8.1 feet. Front setback for the porch on Atlantic, 6.7 feet is required. It is designed at 5 feet 3 inches. Front setback for the house on Pembroke, 18 feet required. It is shown at 16. Front setback for the porch on Pembroke, 9 feet required compared to 6. There's a third floor deck. And finally, there are swimming pool variances, which I believe, I won't read that entire section because my conversations with the applicant's attorney earlier today indicate they will be either eliminating the swimming pool or presenting a supplemental plan that eliminates any variances associated with the swimming pool, so I will save a little time on that one. Comments. And I'm not going to make the comment on the pool, but I'm going to go on to the next one. As to the various setback issues, it is notable that this lot is 10 feet smaller in depth than the lots down the block toward the ocean and beach, and looks to be to be about half the size of the lot on the corner of Atlantic and Quincy, thereby creating some practical difficulty in achieving required setbacks. Again, site visits are important, especially regarding whether or not there is a view obstruction from the house across Atlantic Avenue. And finally, the third-floor deck is to be judged on the usual criteria: impacts on neighbors, integrity of the zone plan, and aesthetics. No conditions are suggested at this time, except, of course, a revised plan indicating the removal of the pool variances.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Members of the board, my name is Chris Balanson. I represent East Shore Development with respect to the property located at 8706 Atlantic Avenue, identified in the tax map as Lot 10 in Block 17. The purpose of this application this evening is for variance relief in order to construct a new single-family home on that property. As has been pointed out, I'm not going to say the property is undersized, but in relationship to the adjacent property, it is substantially smaller with only 3,000 square feet. With that being said, the board's aware that this is a corner property where you are constrained to deal with the setbacks. You've got two front yard setbacks, so you've got to deal with the average up Pembroke and the average on Atlantic. And you'll see from the submission and from Pete's plan that the more significant setback with respect to the front yard is that setback on Atlantic Avenue, where 8 feet is proposed, where 14 feet is required. And not to suggest that anybody didn't go into this with their eyes open and understanding what they bought and understanding what the constraints were, but it turns out that in light of the development on the former Philippo property, Quincy and Atlantic, and the 90 feet of run that house has up Quincy Avenue, that developer had a lot more leeway in terms of siting of the house, and chose to set the house back about 14 feet, which automatically means that this house has to be back 14 feet, despite the fact that the lot only doesn't have 90 feet going up Pembroke as the Quincy house has going up Quincy. So the house, we are seeking permission to move the house closer to Atlantic. It would be 6 feet closer to that, which is permitted. The other setbacks are, again, a front yard setback on Pembroke Avenue, where there's a 2-foot deviation, I think a bit more reasonable, and I think in line with the development on the block. And as Roger pointed out, you have to look to the house across the street and whether or not there would be a view impact. I think we're all familiar with that house across the street, which has no outside living space whatsoever, and really doesn't have. I mean, it has a view from the windows up the street, but I don't think the 2 feet. If you look at it, that 2 feet's not going to make a difference one way or another. And I'll pass that picture around to PKB of the house across the street. There's a second floor deck on Pembroke. As I said, 2 feet in depth there in the front yard is not going to make a difference to that property's view. The other variances are related to the pool. What you'll see this evening is, in light of the comments and some of the safety concerns, the pool has been modified to a spa. It's been pushed back 18 feet from the property line. So it meets the front yard setback requirement, meets the setback requirement that a pool can't be in the front yard. And it easily meets the 6-foot setback from the southerly property line.
Is the fence still adjacent to the pool, right up to the edge of the pool?
It has to be. You have to have a fence around the pool.
Does it touch the water of the pool? Is it right up to the edge of the pool, the fence?
Yeah, it's within a foot of the edge of the pool.
There is a foot between the fence and the pool?
Yes.
Okay. They couldn't tell from the plans. It looked like it went right up to the pool.
It's at least a foot, Rich.
Okay.
It's at least a foot. As I said, the pool is compacted. It's now about 10 by 10 or 9 by 11. And it meets the setbacks. There's no variances related to it. So the variances we're dealing with then are the front yards on Atlantic and Pembroke and a third floor deck sited on the Pembroke elevation in the corner, off that bedroom with views to the ocean, I think you'll see, and you'll hear some testimony, that deck's not going to have much impact on any of the neighbors. It is a beach block property where that deck is not permitted, but everybody has different feelings about whether they should or they shouldn't. Each going to testify, Neely's going to testify. Why don't you swear them in both at the same time, Jackie, just save a couple minutes.
State your name for the record.
Peter Weiss.
State your name for the record.
Would you speak into the microphone, please?
Raise your right hand, please. Swear the testimony about the business matter with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Could he repeat his name for Jack?
Ilya, I-L-Y-A. You got it? Good?
Thanks, good.
Peter, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey,
Yes.
and have obviously appeared before this board on many occasions.
Yes.
Would you describe to the board the existing lot and the improvements on it now, and what is proposed and some of the difficulties you ran into as you lay a house out along this lot? Take it.
The existing lot is, on average, about 54 feet by 70 feet. It's irregular on Atlantic Avenue because Atlantic is at a slight angle to Pembroke. It's not 90 degrees. The existing residence on the lot is a 1.5-story brick building. We propose in this project to construct what I would call a 3-story building. The project will be, as Roger mentioned,
Peter, I can't
just
hear you.
over
Directed.
about 3,074 square feet. The ground floor
Peter.
has,
It's a directional mic pointed towards your mouth. There you
That
go.
way?
Yeah.
that's odd, okay.
Thank you. Yes.
The ground floor has all the living space, and it's basically in an L shape to provide some space for a small spa area, which is basically 9 by 11. This area along Pembroke Avenue is a large open deck. The access from the house to the pool area, or the spa area, would be these stacking door systems. The second floor has 3 bedrooms, and there's 2 bedrooms on the third floor.
The property, in relationship to other properties on the block, the neighborhood, the wood, in terms of its size, how does it square up compared with the neighborhood in general?
Now, on this plan, I took the liberty of drawing in some of the adjoining property lines. So the lot directly to the south along Pembroke is 10 foot deeper, so it's 80 foot deep, as are all the other lots going towards the beach. The property to the west on Atlantic Avenue is 25 foot deeper. So it's substantially, it's 50% deeper basically than our lot. And that's a substantial difference. And because the lot on Atlantic was so deep, they had the opportunity and the option to set their building back much further than they could have. They could have matched the existing setback of the house on our property, which would have been, I believe, around 6 feet. 6 feet.
Setback on land, 6 feet?
Yeah, so they chose not to do that. And because of the current zoning regulations, that house, once we tear this building down, that house becomes our setback because it's the only other house on the block. So to that extent, we would have to conform with the existing house that's there.
And that setback of that new house, that developer's house is
14 feet.
14 feet?
Correct. So 14 feet on this lot is substantially, it takes, it's pretty far back on the lot, considering it's only 53 feet at this.
Where's the existing house now? How many feet back?
6.
So Pete, when you're looking at the 14 feet and the fact that you are no longer permitted, let me back up. We have 2 front yards, 2 side yards. One of the front yards is Atlantic Avenue, and the requirement there is 14 feet. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
What is the frontage on Pembroke?
53.55 feet. I'm sorry, 55.55 feet.
The only permitted location, or the only location that is permitted both by ordinance and by the chief of police is the side of the lot furthest away from the corner, is that right?
That's correct.
And also, you are not allowed to have driveway on accessing the land avenue, is that true?
Correct.
The only place for it naturally is adjacent to the southernmost property line, and that driveway must be at least 10 feet wide.
9 feet.
So you've got a constraint of a 9-foot setback on that side, 14 without variance relief on the land avenue side, which effectively reduces that lot by 23 feet in lot width on 1.8 Parkway section being lot lot.
Yes.
Is that fair? So you've got
40 minus
You've got your
30.
driveway, and you've got your land avenue. Requires 14.
30. No, it's over 30.
Sorry?
I think it's 30. It's 32. 32?
Wait, you've got a required setback off the land to the principal structure of 14 feet.
Well, see, because of this
And you've got a driveway of at least 9 feet, but we're showing something more.
Yeah.
At least 9 feet. So the 14 and the 9 is 23.
23, yes.
Reduces your effective lot width for purposes of principal structure to width
Yes.
by 23 feet.
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought you meant 223.
So effectively, it reduces your lot width in terms of what you can build principal structure by 23 feet.
Yes, overall, yes.
So what you have, so then what did you do in response to that with this design?
Well, we didn't want to actually build a box, so we created an L shape, and as a result, we stretched the building along Pembroke Avenue and also a little bit along Atlantic Avenue.
When you say
So-
you stretch the building, you mean you approached into the front yard off of the land.
Yes,
And that gives you a house width that is more consistent, more in keeping with kind of pattern of the neighborhood, and what someone would expect to live in or purchase at a location like this.
yes,
Therefore, the variance necessitated by the design of 6 feet, going from 14 down to 8.
yes.
If you would speak to the other setback variances, the porch on Atlantic and the house and the porch on Pembroke.
Oh, here, this is
Well, as mentioned,
It's 2 feet.
the lots going down Pembroke Avenue are deeper, so those houses were naturally set back further than our project.
Yeah, I said 30.
As a result, or in spite of being 10-foot shorter lot, we're asking for relief for 2 foot for the building setback along Pembroke. We're also asking for 6 feet for the decks. I think Chris passed around the picture of the house across the street. If you look at that, you'd find that the house on the corner here is pretty close to the sidewalk, so I don't think by building where we propose, it's going to affect their views up the street.
You're speaking of the house across Atlantic Avenue,
Yes,
and that view of Pembroke towards the beach.
yes,
That house comes closer to the street, so to speak, than what it looks like. It comes closer to the street than what's proposed.
I didn't measure, but I think it's consistent with our porch setback.
So in your opinion, you don't see there being any view impact should the board allow setbacks as shown all over Pembroke Avenue?
Yes,
The pool has been modified now to meet ordinance requirements. It meets the, doesn't approach to the front yard, and it meets the 6-foot setback from the southerly property line.
yes.
Speak then about why you believe the third floor deck at this location is appropriate in terms of safety and privacy.
As mentioned, this basically is an L-shaped building. The deck is tucked into the corner. It wouldn't be visible from Atlantic Avenue. The house adjacent to the south doesn't really have many windows on that side, and the largest windows appear to be in a stairway, so I don't see any privacy issues with that. And I think there's, as far as safety goes, I think it's been suggested that it's better to have a third-floor deck in case of fire or emergency access to be able to get to the third-floor deck.
And if the board looks at the floor plans up at that third floor, they'll see that that deck is triangular in shape, going, kind of filling in the L.
Yes,
So it doesn't give opportunity to hang over a railing over the sidewalk.
yes.
Aside from the front yards, that we've discussed, the house otherwise meets the meet the remaining side yard setback?
Yes,
setbacks?
yes.
Meets all the other zoning criteria in terms of coverage, in terms of landscaping, height, and first floor elevation?
Yes. Our coverage is 2% low, and we have a little bit extra landscaping, yes.
Front yard landscaping, I guess because it's a corner lot, it's almost 90% where you need 60.
Yes.
In light of the surrounding conditions, do you see any detriment should the board allow the deviation for the variance with respect to front yard setbacks, or for that matter, the third floor deck?
No.
Thank you, Pete. Mr. Bashman, you've already been introduced and sworn. You are a principal with East Shore Development.
Yes, I am.
You have built other houses in Margate.
Yes.
You certainly were aware, God bless you, when you purchased this lot of its constraints, because it's a corner lot and because of the size and siting of the house next door.
Yes, we were.
And when you then worked with Pete to design a house for the property, what was your goal? What is it that you did and thought you put in?
It is our general principle whenever we purchase a property to design something that is not going to be a square box, repetitive, and something that has been done many times before. We could have accommodated without variance about a 3,300 square foot home with big wraparound porches, which is a square rectangular box within the existing allowed setbacks.
So you're speaking to a principal structure, to a house,
Yeah, the principal.
livable area.
Yes, the livable area would have been about 3280, 3310, approximately based on current setbacks as allowed and numbers. On top of that, we would have had a 9-foot deep porch wrapped around to an 8-foot deep porch around the entire length of the house. Because the current allowable setbacks on Atlantic is 6 foot from the porch. So where the house is 14, the porch would be 6. We would have an 8-foot going all the way down, which would have been,
I'm on your side.
sorry, have it, which would have been a much more massive structure. What I was trying to create is something that's,
Let me stop you just so that sinks in everybody. That had you built a rectangular house without any of the I'll call it the deviations or undulations, whatever you want, you could have built a 3-story, 3,300 square foot house.
yes, by my calculations.
What is proposed is just over 3,000 square feet.
It's 3,070, it's smaller on coverage, it's larger on landscaping. The concept was to create something that's more attractive, not as imposing, and fits the particular smaller lot and that street.
Now, when asking for the setback that you're asking for, particularly on Atlantic Avenue, did you look at the house next door and determine whether or not that setback would have any impact on that house and whoever may end up living in that house?
I believe I have zero impact on every house in that lot, and
Speak to me first about the house immediately next door to Atlantic.
it's a very large lot. It's the largest lot in all of Parkway on Atlantic. There's no other like it, and that house just happens. Oasis built it. It's a large house. It sits further back for, I don't know why, but it does. There's no reason. Their pool is in the side yard. It will have no impact on them whatsoever. They have no real living space on Atlantic other than a small porch. So this has no impact on them view-wise, living-wise. Their whole living space is on the Quincy side, on where the pool is, on the other side of Atlantic.
The setback 14 feet on Atlantic Avenue at this particular location, being familiar with the area, did you look at or do a survey of other properties along Atlantic Avenue to determine whether or not that is I want to have, the best word probably is an average, is that consistent with any of the other houses?
Yes, I did a survey of every property from Canyon Avenue down to Vendome. It's a total of 23 properties. Some interesting facts have arose. The average setbacks for the 23 properties is 9.1 feet for the principal structure. Of the 23 properties, 13 are 8 feet or like 8 feet or less, the same as what we are requesting. There are 8 properties at 14 or greater. What's interesting about them, of the 8, 7 have driveways over Atlantic. These are all older properties. And that's why they can't be set that far back. They built 50, 60 years ago, the driveway's Atlantic, they don't have a driveway on the street. So they have no problem being set back and still maintaining a 32, 33-foot width on a 50-foot lot. The only other property that's at 14 feet is the Oasis property next door, which is the only 90-foot lot on that entire passageway. So when we were doing our design, the request for the variance I did not feel was extraordinary or unusual. It was within the average of the entire Atlantic Avenue for the entire span of whatever, 12, 15 blocks.
What you said with respect to the houses, the 8 houses that have setback in the area of 14 feet, 7 of those 8 have their driveway off of Atlantic, not side streets, so the house can be pushed closer, let me finish, so the house can be pushed closer to the beach.
Correct.
And therefore they can afford that larger setback off Atlantic. Obviously, with current zoning and police enforcement, there are no permitted driveways off of Atlantic. I assume if you could do a driveway off Atlantic, you would have.
If we could have maintained the existing driveway for the property over Atlantic, we would have no problem in keeping the 14 feet and going back, because that would have been the setback.
You are agreeable to modify the pool design as shown on the plan so that you have a straight run porch along Pembroke and the pool now, spa now complies with the ordinance requirement.
Yes.
And you are agreeable, although it's not clear in the plan, to maintaining at least a 1-foot setback for the pool from the porch railing. You're not going to put the pool right up against the fence.
That was never the plan. There was a coping at least of 1.5 feet.
Have you looked at the third floor deck, its location, the way it's designed it, and whether you think that's going to have an impact on, I think it's the DeMeo property next door?
From what I could tell, there was an impact. The angle is 45 degrees towards the beach. It's not facing any other properties, shouldn't have any privacy or issues of that matter.
Thank you, Billy. Is there anything else you want to share with the board with respect to this design and the request for the variance on Atlantic that I haven't touched upon?
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Patterson, that's all I have. This is
Can I clarify, ask for clarification? And I understand the design element,
Yes, ma'am.
that you didn't want a rectangle, but you said you could have built, just for clarification, a 3,300 square foot home on that lot without any setback variance?
Yes, that is my current
But you
calculations.
chose to keep the design and make it a 3,000 square foot home?
I was trying to build something prettier, not larger.
Okay.
Did you also say on the square home you would have a wraparound porch on both sides? Is that what you said?
Correct, because I'll clarify. The setbacks on Pembroke are 18 foot and 9 foot for principal building to porch. That gives me 9-foot porch or entire width. The setbacks on following the Oasis building is 14 and 6. Give me an 8-foot porch. So we would have done, if I was doing a square box, maintaining a coastal look, I would run a wraparound porch the entire width of the building, the entire length of Atlantic. On both the first and the second story, and there would have been a much larger presence to the building.
Would you lose the pool on that design?
There would be no pool in that
No?
design.
Okay.
I just want to share with the board a photograph of the DeMeo house next door. I made a statement that the deck location wouldn't have an impact on the way the house is sliced, just so you see. There are no windows on that side of the house, being the northerly side of the house.
Where's that house?
Right next door, on Pembroke.
On Pembroke, towards the beach.
That's right.
Right.
There are no windows that would be, any privacy would be invaded. Those center windows are in a stairwell tower, stair tower. That's all I have, Richard. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Anybody here from the public like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any other concerns from the board? Anything else, Chris?
No, thank you very much for hearing me out.
So, is there any conditions with the wraparound porch, or is that something?
No, that wraparound porch is what he could do, it's not what he's doing.
We would submit a revised plan showing the deck as
That's
the pool
it.
is modified.
That's the condition.
Right here. Any board discussion?
How do we want to do it all in one vote?
Yeah. Would you read the motion?
The motion is to receive variance relief for the following variances. Front setback on Atlantic to the principal structure required 14 feet, proposed 8.1 feet. Front setback to the porch on Atlantic, 6.7 feet is required, proposed is 5 feet 3 inches. Front setback on Pembroke to the principal structure, 18 feet is required, 16 feet is proposed. And also front setback to the porch on Pembroke, 9 feet is required, 6 feet is proposed. Also, there be a variance to permit a third floor deck, which is currently not permitted. No conditions except the submissions of revised plans.
What didn't you hear, Tom?
Third floor deck, what did you say about that?
It's not permitted, and they're asking for it to be permitted.
I hear a motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Craig?
Clem Oslowski.
I understand that this smaller lot limits the size of development relative to other properties in the neighborhood. But I think the solution to that problem is to build less house, not ask for a number of variances. I think there's just too much mass here for the size of the lot. And as to the third floor deck, I see no justification for that whatsoever. I vote no.
Jim Galantino.
I mean, the testimony was okay as to why the house should be built in the location it is. I see that I see why Mr. Vasserman's moving in the direction he's going. He's trying to get a house to fit the lot and give more visibility to the front yard. And the example he used on Quincy is a good example of when you don't have that much front yard, you don't get that much use of it. I don't see the, I've always been wondering about the third floor deck, why it's contained to just the ocean and bayfront. I'd like to see it moved around a little bit if it's well contained in the setback. As to that, I think it's a nice house. I'm going to vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty.
While I understand the design element, and I know Mr. Wasserman builds very nice homes in our city.
You point the mic towards your mouth, you can't.
Yeah.
Just point it towards your mouth, that's all.
Thank you. Based upon, I have no problem with the third floor deck. I don't believe that it impacts the neighbors at all. But I believe, as Mr. Wasilewski said, it is too much house for that lot. I think if you go back and redesign, I think there's too much. I think the house comes out too far on Atlantic Avenue for the setbacks. I thank you for the pool setback, adjusting that, but I think we're setting a precedent because there are many empty lots on Atlantic Avenue, on Vendome and Atlantic. There's two houses on Atlantic between the house directly next door that's for sale, the house next to that, which I understand is also going to be taken down. And I think if we set a precedent and allow these variances on the front setback, that we are setting ourselves up for failure on houses that will be built, so I have to vote no.
Mike Cristaldi?
I agree with Margaret. I think we're getting out of control with the size. The third-floor decks, which I was always against, in this instance, I think it worked well. And I think getting rid of the pool was also a good idea. But you should have never said a wraparound deck. I think that would really enhance that corner a lot better than overbuilding the lot. I think it would just be a much better application for the property. I vote no.
Craig Palmisano?
It's a tough one. It's a corner lot, and it's a smaller lot than normal on Atlantic Avenue. The front setback is pretty much equal to a lot of the ones you've said you've found on Atlantic Avenue. And the porch, I'm okay with the front porch on Atlantic. It's only a foot. The front setback on Pembroke is 2 feet from 18 to 16. I'm okay with that. Third floor decks, I'm fine with third floor decks. It's out of the line of sight off the master bedroom. Nobody can really see that deck on an angle. And it's an improvement for the neighborhood. I'm going to vote for the project.
Craig, your vote, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a yes.
Despina Hess, please.
I'll start with the third floor deck. I'm not in opposition to it in this project. However, fortunately, I do have to take some issue with the combination of each of the setbacks being requested. Front setback Atlantic, front setback porch, and the remaining two. The issue I have is I do take some empathy with corner homeowners. I am one, whether it be the homeowner itself or the developer. We want the residents to have enough living space. We want them to have not just a useful home, but a home they can enjoy. And this isn't a situation, I don't believe, where the residents can't get enough space. There are other design modifications that could be made. You've given us one example of the 3,300 square foot home with 2 wraparound, a 9-foot and an 8-foot porches. There's other alternatives, I believe, besides the one that we've been presented, which would require this numerous amount of setbacks. And there are endless corner lots here in Margate, and we don't want to have all our homes pushed up to the sidewalks. I think that would take away from this neighborhood as well as other neighborhoods if we were allowing it wherever it was requested. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to vote no for the application.
Rich Patterson?
Well, you gave us the statistics of the setbacks from Kenyon to Vendo, but I stood at the front of the house, or the front of the house next door, looking towards Longport, and it just seemed from there the visual line was pretty much in line with that 12 to 14 feet. I have to agree with Mike Cristaldi here. The house that you say you could have built sounds better to me than the house you're building. The house to the Atlantic City side, there's 2 houses there that are probably going to be torn down. And I would rather see the houses set back. You know, the unfortunate thing is here is you have a small lot, and I think you need to not get variances here and build to what's on a lot. So I vote no.
The motion does not pass 2 to 5.
This is too much.
Next case is Mark Trapani, 9606 Monmouth Avenue, Block 330, Lot 39, in the MF District to grant a C variance for side setback and combined setbacks, air conditioner location, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin? I do. Subject property is a duplex, 2 units, 1 under and 1 over, with each unit having 3 bedrooms per the plan submitted by Charles E. Endicott, engineer on a lot of 25 feet wide by 125 feet deep, totaling 3,125 square feet. The building's dimensions are 17 feet wide by 85 feet long. Per the submitted plans and narrative, it is proposed to raise the structure from the existing finished floor elevation of 7.49 NAVD 1988 to a new height of 13.16 NAVD 1988. Current FEMA requirements are that this structure must be raised to 13. Current state law says that structures cannot be elevated higher than 3 feet above the BFE, and the BFE is elevation 9, and 9 plus 3 equals 12. So the state law limits the elevation of this structure to 1 foot under what FEMA requires. Comment, craziness? No? Now, I'd like to point out that this morning we had a meeting with the city solicitor, and I received, and I can tell you now that there's a new ruling that no longer is a variance. The requirement that it has to be at elevation 13 is substantiated by state law under an interpretation that I have received from the city solicitor. So after I wrote this, as late as this morning, that particular variance will disappear. As part of this plan, there are certain other changes being proposed. Placing 4 additional parking spaces under the elevated building, altering front and rear decks, creating a new deck on the right side of the house, and a new air conditioner platform on the right side of the house, which does not meet the required setback. Variance is required. Ignore the first one, that is not a variance as to the height. Regarding the new right side access porch, it's a side setback variance, 5 feet is required versus only about 2 feet, and combined side setbacks, 10 feet is required versus 4.5 total. And the air conditioner location, 5 feet is required compared to 2 feet as proposed. I was also told after this review was received by the applicant that they will present a revised plan tonight, moving the air conditioner to a legal location, thus eliminating that variance, and they may possibly be presenting a plan revising the side porch. No? No,
We can have discussion about it.
Okay, maybe I was told wrong. Comments. The submitted plans have not been prepared by an architect, but as stated by Endicott Engineering. We were not sure this would be acceptable under current planning board rules, so we notified the applicant and his attorney regarding this concern. The applicant has informed me that he will retain an architect and attempt to have a revised version for presentation tonight with the new architect available for testimony. That architect is Peter Weiss, and he is here to testify. If time did not allow the revisions to be ready on time, he would request that the board act, and if approved, require substitution of the submitted plans by architect Weiss in a sealed version after the meeting. There are pressures brought to bear by virtue of government and other funding sources that the board should consider and be helpful if possible. There are some issues within the plans that probably will be eliminated by the new version, and Mr. Bailenson doesn't seem to think so. For example, as stated above, the new access right side deck has different dimensions on the site plan from the elevation drawing. The front decks are shown on the site plan and elevation drawings, but not on the floor plans, and the floor plans don't clearly show entrance points into the house, etc. As a basic principle, there should be no objection to raising this house. You could ignore item 3 because that variance has been eliminated. Number 4, the applicant will move the air conditioner units to a legal location in the rear, and I was told shorten the enlarged right side deck to the dimensions of the existing ground level landing, eliminating both variances. And now I'm not sure about that. And finally, the applicant will also volunteer to add landscape strips of about 3 feet on both sides at the front of the house to create some permeability. There is none now, and for an aesthetic upgrade. The only suggested condition would be 8 sets of revised plans reflecting the above items. This homeowner has a history of improvements that benefit the city, such as, excuse me, a few years ago, reducing this building from a 4-unit building to just 2 units. If the enclosed is now approved, The city and neighborhood will be enhanced by more off-street parking, better landscaping, and a flood-resistant building that helps our CRS points in a critically low elevation part of town.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin, member of the board. Chris Balanson on behalf of Mr. Trapani, who's here with me for 9606 Monmouth Avenue. It's lot 39 and block 330. Roger, to follow up on your comments, yes, a revised plan will be submitted, putting the air conditioning units in a conforming location. With respect to the connection now between the front deck, if we're talking about, what we're talking about with the deck is the door is on the side of the house. So there's a stairway up and a landing to that door, but now they've also connected the deck and the landing to the front deck, which is now being withdrawn. So what's going to happen is you'll get a revised plan, and all that deck on the side requires variance to the setback. You'll get a revised plan where the front deck will be accessible only from inside the structure, and it'll be in the same location, but it will be just servicing that door with the connection between the front deck and the landing for the door eliminated. Well,
So the landing coming out of the door will be the same size as the landing now?
the landing outside the door will have double loaded stair, one coming up from each side, servicing, there's two doors there actually, servicing those two doors.
Right. It'll be the same dimensions as the existing landing that's close to the
It'll
ground?
be the same dimensions as shown on the plan. I don't know what's there yet, I really don't. So I don't want to say that, Roger, without knowing what that is. It'll be as shown on the plan, the section connecting into the front deck eliminated.
So what we need to know is there still a variance? Is it enlarged? If it's enlarged, there's a variance.
Then I'll ask for the, I'll request the variance. Leave it the same.
Chris,
Yes.
wouldn't that be a safety hazard if you didn't have it going out and getting down?
I would defer to Craig on that, you know, that's another means of egress or egress having that connection. I thought there was a problem with it, I could take it out, but the board can talk
I
about
don't
that.
know that there's a problem. I'm just identifying it as a variance because it's enlarged. The board may like it.
How about I'll say this, if it turns out to be problematic because of the variance, we can eliminate the connection. If the board thinks it's safer to leave it and providing access to grade from the sliders, we can leave it. Aside from that issue...
Is that what you were talking about, or were you talking about to the back door? I thought you were talking access to the side door.
To get out of there, if it's such a narrow property, FEMA's creating a hazard, not the people.
Right.
To get out of there, it would be better just to keep the deck going to have access out for egress.
By this design, Rich, you have another egress, which would be from a slider here at the deck.
Right.
Around the corner and down. We were, if it was going to, that variance is a problem, we were going to eliminate the connection. But for fire safety, leave it, that way you can get down to the living room, get down the back. All the other variances, the setback variances associated with the existing conditions, the structure is being raised to 13 versus 12 to give ceiling height once ductwork and mechanicals are put in the garage, so to speak, and still have headroom. We'll have about 7 feet of headroom after the mechanicals and other equipment is installed as the REV grant requires. It's got to be on the underside of the first floor, so many feet above grade. That's it. Chuck Endicott is the licensed professional engineer who, and just so we understand, I mean, Chuck's an engineer, but not an architect. And the plan you can see really is a plan to raise the house. The house raising companies won't take a job, they won't touch it unless an engineer draws them a plan. There is nothing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, there's nothing really architectural about what's been done. It's all a plan showing, the new foundation and whatnot. So I'm not just throwing that out there. I just thought I'd get a shot at it. Chuck.
Can you for the record, please?
Sure. It's Charles Endicott.
Please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter be true, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Chuck, you are not an architect, is that right?
That is correct.
You're a licensed professional engineer.
I'm a licensed professional engineer and planner, yes.
And you prepared the plan really primarily for Baumgartner.
Chuck, could you take that mic and hold it in your hand, please? I'll just stand here.
You prepared this plan to show how the house is going to be raised, structurally supported from your engineering background.
That is correct.
Something that any of these companies that are lifting houses require.
Absolutely.
And you found this duplex to be appropriate to be raised, consistent with the plan you prepared.
I did, yes.
And there are no alterations to the house other than the access points that we just discussed with this project.
Other than the parking underneath, right? Yeah, there's no physical changes to the structure in terms of accessing the structure. The only change that we are proposing is that when the house is lifted, we're going to have some area for parking underneath of it.
And the parking will be 2 spaces for each unit?
Yes.
And the setbacks that are now non-conforming, they're not being exacerbated by the principal structure, is that right?
That is correct.
There is some encroachment with respect to the new access point that we just discussed, and that's as shown on the plan.
Correct.
And you believe that obviously providing additional access with the increased height is a safer plan for ingress and egress into this property?
I do, and that's the reason that we kind of laid that deck out that way. Just better access, better circulation, just made a lot more sense than having a single landing accessing both doors.
And the project as designed and the structure as raised still complies with the height limitations of Margate?
It's actually like 0.3 of a foot higher above the maximum height.
Higher?
Higher, yes.
That would be an additional variance.
Yes.
We can make that 13 even and eliminate that, can we not?
Yeah, we can take the
We're gonna do
0.3
that.
off.
We're not going to ask for the height variance, we're going to take the 0.3 off. That's all I have. Chuck, thank you very much.
Any questions from the board? Any comments? Is there any-
I'll take suggestions with respect to those stairs, but hearing these guys as to the access, preference would be to leave it.
I have a question. How much room is there when you come down the steps facing the rear of the building to get, what? When you come down the steps there, do you have to exit to the rear of the building?
Yeah.
You can't come around those steps and go towards the front?
Yes, you can.
It's about, which looks like a foot, 2 feet maybe?
There's existing just over 5.
It's 5.2 feet.
But the whole thing was 5?
Oh, yeah, the existing setback is 5.13
Oh, yeah,
feet.
I see it.
Yep, and it's a 3-foot staircase.
So it's 2 feet, 1.3
Yes,
left,
correct.
24 inches. 25 inches to get around the step and go out to the front. So it really exits to the back.
It exits to the front and to the back, both ways.
Yes, yes.
Why does it go so far to the back, beyond where the door is?
It's going to end right at the doors, so it's, wherever the existing access doors are, the deck is going to end a foot beyond that,
Are you
and the steps will
going to
begin.
shorten it by how many feet toward the rear?
It's going to be shortened to the location of the door.
To the location of the door?
Oh, that's a picture here, right here. It's going to be shortened to here.
There's actually 2 doors on the building. It's going to be shortened to the door closest to the rear yard.
Not sure.
Not shown. Thank you. And that will be on a revised plan.
I missed it. Did you point out where the air conditioner is being moved to?
The air conditioner will be moved to the back of the building.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, just for accommodation, Peter has been consulted if it's required that this plan be, or a plan be prepared by an architect. Obviously, that wasn't budgeted with the grant application. If the plan is going to require that be done, we can be done, spend that money to do that. I prefer not to. Sorry, Pete, but I really would prefer not to. I don't think I have to. It's just an unnecessary additional expense. I mean, I think it's great.
I mean, yeah, I know. Thanks. I mean, you got to look at some of these applications in the light that they're taken in, and there are some requirements under Sandy that make it a little bit exceptional to to comply with the rules all the time. So I think, my recommendation, because of the way the application is, which was essentially caused by having to raise the BFE, it looks like, the other conditions are pretty much all existing. So, yeah, I would recommend that you can vote on that, and if the board wants to discuss whether or not they want architecture plans, that's fine with me, but I'm comfortable on what that is, what the plans show now.
What the revised
Thank you.
plans will show.
What the revised plans will show.
Yeah, I know.
But I mean, it's a very, very narrow exception for this.
And that's the reason I raised it, because there's no improvements. There's nothing architectural being done to the building,
Just don't do it again.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments from the board? Anyone here from the public like to comment? Public portion is closed. If there's no other comment, Jim?
Any conditions? Any conditions?
Well, we're getting to that.
Revised plan. The only condition I had, Roger, was a revised plan showing the porch being shortened and whatever else you have.
Showing a porch, what?
Being short.
Being shortened to the door.
Yeah, the porch, number one, the revised plans, porch being shortened to the closest to the rear of the two doors. Showing the air conditioner moved to a legal location in the rear, and lowering the first floor to exactly 13.0 in AVD 1988.
So that the overall height meets ordinance requirements.
Oh, yeah, the overall height is several feet.
No, so the floor meets the requirement.
This first floor, instead of 13.16, 13.0.
Stan, I couldn't hear what you said relative to the architectural elements.
He said we didn't need,
You didn't need what?
I said because of the nature of the application, that it's kind of an exception, I feel, not to, because the main reason was because of the structural nature of them raising the home. So that was really what caused the application to require a variance for that. And if it was, even though it's residential and it should be an architect, I believe because of the fact that FEMA is requiring it to be raised and they require engineers to do that, that it's a narrow exception to this. We should allow it. And I know you disagree.
It's Clem, I mean, we can be off the record, if you're going to report Mr. Endicott for doing this, then... I can't understand. Sure. If you're going to report Mr. Endicott to the architectural board at the state for testifying and being granted this exception, I'll have Pete get involved. I just don't think the cost and expenses justify your requirement.
because there's nothing architectural being changed?
No,
I just want to be clear that there's nothing architectural being changed.
The house, Baumgartner or Wolf, or those guys, they're not going to take a structural analysis from an architect, I don't believe, to do this work. They need it from an engineer. So I just hope that you're not a...
I'm not going to report this.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Listen,
Yes.
I'm not going to report this statement because the last two that I did of this nature, the architectural board transferred it over to the engineering board, and then for the Fox to police the hen house.
I'm just trying to avoid going any further.
There's an effective I mean, with that being said, I believe, Roger, the variances would just be as read on your report, correct?
The actual only variance here with these changes is the slight enlargement of the side deck, not as large as it's originally shown. The air conditioner disappeared, the elevation of the first floor disappeared, everything disappeared except a little bit of an enlargement of the side deck. It's all you're dealing with.
So the side setback that you put in...
The side setback for that side deck.
.2 of your B, of section B.
That's the only thing that you're considering.
Which is 5 feet required, about 2 feet proposed and combined setbacks, correct?
For an unknown extent, slightly larger than it is now, right behind the rearward door on the left side, on the right side.
Okay. So someone can make that motion.
I'll make a motion. Any second?
I'll second.
Clem Wasleski?
Obviously, the building needs to be raised. I don't have any problem with that. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
I don't see any detriment. I vote yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
Based on the fact that it is a 25-foot lot, I thank you for adding parking, I thank you for improving the landscaping and making the house flood compliant. I understand the access points, and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
I look at it as a hardship that they didn't want to start with. They're trying to resolve it. It helps RCRS. I vote yes.
Craig Palmisano?
Raising the home is a good thing. I also vote yes.
Despina Hess?
For all the reasons already stated, I also vote yes.
Rich Patterson?
With the revised ruling we got this morning, this case probably could have been worked out in Roger's office without having to come here, and I apologize that you had to waste your time to come here, but I definitely vote yes on this case.
The application passes 7-0. Chris, will you come sign?
Next case is Lori Kim and Trent Jones, 308 North Clarendon Avenue, Block 504.01, Lot 16, in the S25 district, to grant a C variance for fence height. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin? Yes. The subject property is a two-story, single-family home on a lot of 40 by 62 and a half feet, 2,500 square feet. The house has a driveway on the left side leading to an attached garage in the rear left corner. Per the plan submitted, the applicants constructed a 6-foot-high fence on the right side of the house, starting about 12 feet beyond the front of the house and going to the rear, and then turning left and enclosing a small yard. Also, they placed a 6-foot-high fence on the left property line from the garage forward to the line of the front of the house, then turning to the house to enclose the driveway at about 13 feet back from the front property line. Unfortunately, these were built without proper building permits, and the applicant will explain the representations made to it by the fence contractor. Variances required are fence height, 5 feet is permitted, compared to the constructed fences at 6 feet high. Fence location, the fence and gate portion that encloses the driveway does not meet the 18-foot requirement in front for a parking space. Comments. The principal reasons as set forth by the applicant for the 6-foot fence height are issues with the next-door neighbor on the right side, wherein the applicant's narrative describes difficulties causing members of the family to be fearful. The applicant would need to provide testimony along those lines, and I would think the board may consider such testimony as a valid cause for a variance action, just as this board has approved high fences for such things as unsightly yards, large dogs, etc. Second, the applicant should also provide testimony as to the absence of the building permit. Third, regarding the left side, whether or not 6 feet is permitted, this is not the side with the alleged neighbor issue. The gate covering the driveway must be enlarged to an 8-foot opening, which would allow a car through, and it must be moved back so there is a full 18 feet in front of the property line. The applicant has told me that she will comply with that. And finally, if approved, the board must deal with a possible right side encroachment issue. Per the survey, the applicant's side landing and steps encroach on that neighbor's property by 0.10 feet or 1.2 inches. Ignore the rest of that sentence. I went and looked at the house again today in preparation for the meeting, and I did not realize that the fence actually goes over the steps, and is well within the property line, clearly, visually, it's clearly 6 or 7 inches inside the property line, so there is no encroachment issue. And I have no conditions to suggest at this time. Thank you.
Number 4 is out. Number 4 is out.
What?
Yes.
Number 4 is out. Yeah.
Please speak into the microphone, please.
Lori Kim Jones.
James Jones.
Just point the mic towards your mouth and we can hear you.
Just get the permits because we hired a contractor. So sure. Okay. All right, so, okay.
Sorry about that.
We bought the house in August of last year, not this past year, last year.
Maybe she can hold it, Jim, in her hand.
Sorry. Better? Okay.
Hold it closer. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
Want to hear you.
Okay, we purchased the house in August of last year, and we hired a contractor who did, with my husband, apply for all the permits that were necessary, except for the fence. And what happened was, towards the end, because we had been 9 months into the house already, and that we had taken the house apart and everything, I went to a realtor that we bought the home from and asked for a reference for another contractor in the area. She referred someone, and to come to find out, that contractor really was not a legitimate contractor. So the permits were never filed for. I do have an email along with a text message stating that he did file for the permits, and that is why I went ahead and got the fence.
He told you that he got the permit?
Yes, I have it in a text, okay?
Great.
So I hired the fencing company, and he put the fence in, and we put it at 6 feet, which was my idea, not my husband's. He didn't want it because I'm having problems with the neighbor next door who constantly finds it okay to come on our property, yell through us through the window in my bathroom if the bathroom window is open, along with the fact that even if we come home at night and we're walking inside the house, he will come out on his porch at 10 o'clock at night, because we both work full-time. My husband's not with me, my daughters are, and he will stand on his porch and watch every move we make.
Will this fence block his view?
Yes, it does, especially on the side where we're sitting, and on the other side where we're hiding in our driveway.
Why not?
Who was the contractor for the fence?
Was pillar, is it pillar to post? That was post to post? It's right here.
Post to post?
It was post to post.
Pillar post?
No, post to post.
Post to post?
Yes, on Fire Road in Egg Harbor Township.
Okay.
You did tell me that you would be willing, if approved, to move back the gate the way I suggested, 18 feet on the
Absolutely.
driveway side?
Yes, absolutely. We have a gentleman now that's finishing up some work that wasn't completed, that we needed done, and also working on our other home, and he said he has no problem even meeting with someone here. He's a licensed contractor, Shore Points Construction.
I see him in the audience, and he's a licensed contractor, and he gets permits for everything. Isn't that him over there?
Hey, Ron.
Oh,
It's not
different.
this
No,
one.
I'm sorry.
This one's in, no, this one's in
Gets no
Ocean
permit.
City.
Wait a minute.
Roger, why would she have to hire another contractor?
She's got to...
Why can't she
To
make
fix the
that
fence.
contractor come back, get the permits, and fix the fence?
Well, I don't...
Jimmy?
She
They're not in business anymore.
she
We didn't want
could.
that, we didn't want that contractor back on our property.
I understand, that makes sense.
They don't want anything more to do with him.
You have no idea of the trouble we had now with all, yeah, yes.
Lori Kim, so you'll move the gate back on the driveway side to 18 feet and widen it to an 8-foot wide opening, 2 fours?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
you also told me that your neighbor on the left side had what were his thoughts about 6 foot high on his side?
Said he wrote a letter.
What?
He submitted a letter.
He submitted a letter. We met, he sent us an email that he did submit a letter to the township.
Well, would you just tell us what he said to you?
He said it was fine, he was happy with it. You know, the whole time we had the construction going, he was very happy. We never had a problem at all with him, at all.
I don't have a problem.
Everyone was properly notified, and this person doesn't seem to be here this evening to object.
Do you have anything else? Do the board have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Clem.
Roger, how many parking places do they require? You move the fence back?
The fence didn't create the need for any additional parking. They have a driveway with enough space for 2 cars in front of a garage in the rear.
Yeah.
I don't know how many are required. I know they have 3 spaces, but nothing they did required a change in the amount of parking spaces.
But you want the 8-foot gate to
Because
have
the
2
ordinance-
parking spaces available.
The ordinance does not allow a driveway to be cut off with less than 18 feet in front of the cutoff point.
So a car can park in front of the fence?
Yeah, okay, that's...
Right. So the conditions, if approved, would be to submit revised plans showing that change, and then to do that within a reasonable period of time, I would say like 90 days. Is that a reasonable period of time?
That was the only question that the contractor asked to see, because he said because of the weather. He was asking if we could possibly push it off until the weather is okay for him to do it.
Is the board okay with April 1st? That's usually what
Yes.
we do when weather
Yes.
kicks in. Okay, then that's all I have.
Well, 18 feet, you say, from the property line back in?
Correct.
There must be room for a car to park in front.
It's not from one edge of the sidewalk, it's from the actual property line, 18 feet.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? Public portion is closed. Would you say those conditions
Said
again?
them already.
Okay, well, with the conditions that Roger said, can I hear a motion?
Say them again.
Clem Wozleski?
Just a shame situations like this arise and have to be addressed in this manner, but I don't see any detriment to the solution the 6-foot fence provides. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
I approve.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I'm sorry they were put in this situation. Realtors' recommendations are not always a validation of the workman's viability. I will say that, and I see no detriment, and I vote in favor.
Mike Cristaldi?
I feel bad that you were a victim. I approve.
Craig Palmisano?
Houses are very close in the neighborhood, and I approve your problem.
Despina Hess?
I have to abstain from this.
Pardon me?
I wasn't here for the testimony. I have to abstain.
Yeah, we have to have Joe DiGirolamo.
Joe DiGirolamo?
Yes, I do approve of this application.
Rich Patterson?
I also approve for all the previous reasons. You people got rolled over twice. I'm sorry what happened to you, and I hope this helps. So it's approved.
The application passes 7
Come up and
to
sign.
nothing. Please come sign.
Good work. Nice work. Move it along. You have to announce next week's meeting at the end of this. Maybe do it now.
What, the November 5th meeting?
Yeah, November 5th, 7 p.m., Ponzio final presentation, each final.
Just need to make an announcement now. There will be a special planning board meeting November 5th to review the Ponzio plans for the Sandy
Post-Sandy.
Post-Sandy remediation,
Bayfront,
Bayfront, Beachfront, and Amherst Avenue improvements at 7 o'clock at this location on November 5th.
That will be the final version based on all the comments that you guys made. It was sent to them, and it'll be a public hearing, so the public will be involved. Hopefully, we'll get a nice crowd.
Next case, Sylvan and Mary Ann Kesselman, 8 South Knight Avenue, Block 112.02, Lot 17, in the S25 district, to grant a C variance for rear setback and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin.
Please swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth and whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. The subject property is a 2-story single-family house with an attached garage at the left rear position at the end of the driveway. Excuse me, at the second floor rear of the house, in the corner nearest to the garage, on the second floor, there is a roofed and railed open deck within the framework of the house above a first floor portion of the house. Per the narrative submitted and the hand-drawn plans, the applicants wish to enclose this deck to create a bathroom. Variance required is a rear setback variance. 12.5 feet is required compared to what is reported to be about 7.5 feet to the existing rear wall, which coincides with the rear rail of the open porch. It is not exact, as the survey is not precisely to scale. Considerations. The board may have some concerns about the plans which are not architect drawn and not signed by the applicant owner. And I was told by the applicant owner after I wrote this that they were signed, and maybe I missed the signature, and that's fine. Also, the requested full second level floor plan as requested by the staff committee was not submitted, nor is there a rear elevation drawing for the board to look at in considering the variance. In its site visits, the board members should consider impacts to neighbors, to their windows or backyards, if any, caused by the proposal. There is a kind of trade-off between the extra building mass created by the wall versus the advantage to the neighbors of not having noise and privacy issues that sometimes occur due to open decks so close to their windows and patios. And keep in mind, the patio is already fully roofed and railed, and it does not project, so the walling in is somewhat less obtrusive than might otherwise be the case. Finally, an extra bathroom makes the house more livable for the owners and extends its usable life, which may be an advantage over alternative actions. No conditions are suggested at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Chairman, members of the board, Michael Malinsky of Fox Rothschild LLP, on behalf of the applicants, Marion and Sylvan Kesselman. As correctly stated by Mr. Rubin, we are here for a rear setback variance to allow a 7.5-foot enclosing, the deck to be enclosed to allow 7.5 feet where 12.5 feet is required. This is a variance. This is already roofed and railed. In fact, the roof projects farther than the railing. All this is we're going vertical and putting 2 walls up, not extending it out any. With regard to architecturals, because of this simple application of just putting 2 walls up, one on the rear and one on the side of the deck, which is closer to lot 18, we did not feel that was necessary. What we do have tonight and what was submitted with the application was several things. One, what I'm providing tonight is color pictures of what the enclosed deck will look like, and I'm submitting this as applicant's exhibit A1, if I may approach.
Is this the new wall? This is the new wall?
It's not up yet, but that's what it's...
That's the new wall.
It's showing, yes.
Right.
That's going to be the new wall.
It's a high-tech record.
I see that.
I needed him for
I know. Thank you for your testimony. Can we call a vote now?
But what I've just given you in A1 consists of a 8.5 by 11 color picture of the rear view of the house with the wall that's proposed and the side view of the house with the wall that is proposed. Also, what I'm going to hand out to the board and which was submitted with the application.
We don't need any more handouts.
No more handouts?
No.
As A2, what I had previously marked was the floor plan that was signed by my client.
That's fine.
Showing that. I have with me tonight two witnesses. I have the applicant and I have the construction official, but with
They're
the
welcome.
chairman's
No,
nods.
they are welcome to testify.
With the chairman's nods, what I will represent to the board is that I feel this promotes the goals and objectives of the master plan in the sense that it allows you to provide housing that addresses the needs of your aging citizens by the installation of this second-story bathroom. It makes the house more livable and usable for my aged clients, and it makes it better for their family. It also, this is in the S25 zone, which is your least restrictive zone, and it also contains, ironically, the narrowest and shallowest lots. I would represent to the board that based upon the shallowness of this lot, there is a need for the rear setback variance as there was, as the home itself doesn't meet the rear setback variance. I don't see any detriment from the granting of this variance in the sense that it would, one, create more privacy and actually less noise by having, instead of the outside deck, having an enclosed area. You're actually, by eliminating the deck and enclosing the house, making the property more conforming with section 175-30C5, which requires all decks to have the same setbacks as the principal structure. And this
Thank you. That was a brilliant presentation. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Is there anyone from the public? Public portion is closed. Is there anyone else? Any other questions? Would you read the motion, Stan?
As Mr. Rubin's report says, essentially it's a C variance for rear setback requirement 12.5 feet, proposed 7.5 feet.
I hear a motion? Second? Jimmy, second.
Clyde Wozleski?
The fact that this enclosure
Mike?
lines up on the side with the existing sidewall and the rear with the existing rear wall, I think its impact on the neighbors is negligible. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino?
I think your contractor, Paul, will do a great job in this. Looks like a nice formed wall and a bathroom. I approve.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I see no detriments and no negative impacts to the neighbors, and I approve the application.
Mike Cristaldi?
As with the other board members and the good drawings, I approve.
Craig Palmisano?
I also approve, no detriment to the neighborhood.
Despina Hess?
I also approve the application. I see no detriment, only improvements, as the attorney stated. It's actually being modified into a more conforming home. I vote yes.
And Rich Patterson?
Well, I had trouble with this one, but with a brilliant case provided by the attorney, mine was changed, and I have to vote yes on this.
The application passes 7-0.
Great job. Next case is LLP Investments, LLC, 114-116 North Jefferson Avenue, Block 329, Lot 412, in the MF District for site plan approval and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin? Yes, I do. The subject property consists of two structures with a total of 6 units on a lot of 75 by 125, totaling 9,375 square feet. It is proposed to demolish both structures and build thereon a 4-unit, or known as a quadruplex building, as portrayed in the submitted plans by Peter Weiss Architect. The two front units each have 3 bedrooms in a 2-story above parking storage configuration, and the 2 rear units have a partial 3rd floor and 3 bedrooms plus loft and attic on the top level. This totes to 4 bedrooms, and the 10 parking spaces provided satisfy the parking requirement. There appear to be no variances. Action required is site plan. The site plan appears well-drawn and sensible. The architect has fit in sufficient parking without sacrificing front landscape area or trees and shrubs. We should appreciate the exterior materials and color schedule, as the applicant is demonstrating a desire to create a building that will be an aesthetic enhancement to the neighborhood. 3, the landscaping and parking meet or exceed zoning requirements and far surpass the deficient situations they are replacing. There is also at least 1 new on-street parking space created by the layout. 4, plans should notate that air conditioners will be screened per code, and all non-waivable conditions of the city engineer's letter, which is attached, must be satisfied by revised plans as a condition of approval if approved.
Is this site plan, is this a date?
No.
I guess it
Done.
Yeah, you can sign it. All right,
It's planning board, 9 votes.
What?
I thought it was a date.
No.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Eric Goldstein on behalf of the applicant, LLP Investments, LLC. With me tonight is Peter Weiss, who designed the plan. As Mr. Rubin stated, it's a variance-free plan. Mr. Weiss has testified before the board on numerous occasions in addition to testifying earlier this evening, so I would ask that his qualifications as an expert in the field of architecture be accepted by the board.
Yes.
Okay. Pete, you've already been sworn in, so would you please come forward and explain to the board what you've drawn and how this fits into the criteria of a site plan without the need for variances?
Peter Weiss. I do. Okay, what we are proposing is a quadruplex, 4 units. It's a rectangle. There's unit in each corner, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. Due to the requirement, the BFE requirement, to have the first floor elevated to 13, leaves us plenty of room underneath for parking without sacrificing any height of the building at the top. So, as it's laid out, actually, the ground floor is all parking and some storage. The trash storage is shown in these 4 locations. So the plans of we'll call the first floor, are all the same. We have the living space and utilities. Upstairs in the front units, we have 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. In the rear, it's the same configuration. And then upstairs is a loft, which could potentially be used as a bedroom also. The building, as it is designed, meets all the requirements of the zoning ordinance, meets or exceeds all the bulk requirements. We have fairly large setbacks all the way around. We're under in building coverage, and we're okay with building height.
Any questions about that work?
No.
Pete, does this have to be accessible, handicap accessible?
No. These are townhouse units, so they're exempted.
I can't hear you.
So they're townhouse units, so they're exempted from that.
You think so?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Goldstein, I'm assuming that either the conditions have been corrected from the report from Mr. Wahlberg of October 9th, where you agree with all those conditions?
No, I actually asked for some waivers, which is the final thing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. So
Okay.
what waivers are you requesting?
So we would be asking for a waiver. Obviously, it's considered to be a major site plan, but we're talking about 4 units here. So we would ask for a waiver of items number 7.
Excuse me. This board usually doesn't deal with that. They usually approve it with your satisfaction of all non-waivable conditions, and we allow the city engineer to decide what he will waive.
That's fine then.
Submit them
That's
directly
fine. Good
to
enough.
them.
And we'll discuss it with Remington and Vernick. Thank you.
I got my boards mixed up.
This is the move it along board.
Unless the board has any further questions, the applicant will rest.
Is there anyone here from the public who would like to comment? Public portion is closed. Any other comments or questions from the board? Do you hear a motion for major site plan approval?
I'll second it.
The conditions being the city engineer requirements and the air conditioner screening.
Did you hear that?
Yes, and that's acceptable. Thank you.
You heard that about the air conditioning and whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Motion and second.
Clem Oslewski?
Were there any conditions I couldn't hear?
The air conditioner cover, that's it.
And the engineer.
And the engineer approving the whatever.
Any waivers?
The only problem I have with it, and we've had this before, I think we need to address it when we address the master plan, is the tandem parking. I understand 2 tandems in Margate you almost have to put up with. But when you put 3 cars in a row, it's going to make a problem out on that street. We discussed this last meeting with the one across the street, to which in effect we gave a very strange parking variance. Roger recognizes that the upper floor units are actually 4-bedroom units, which requires the 10 parkings. If the upper bedrooms on there were reduced to 3 units, or 3 bedrooms, sorry, then the parking would be reduced to 8, and we'd get rid of the triple parking. So unless those 4th bedrooms in the upper 2 units are eliminated, I have to vote no.
Jim Galantino?
I don't understand. Would that be part of the site plan, that the parking issue?
Site plan, yeah.
Okay. I think it's an attribute to the area. I think what they had existing was a dilapidated condition down there that was awful for years. And to see something come about, and I don't see anybody from the general public step up, I think it's just going to be an asset to the city down there, which needs to have some revitalization, and I think this is a great movement for the neighborhood, and I approve this application. I'm running for governor, too.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I believe this is an improvement to what presently exists. You're going from total of 6 units to 4 units, and I approve of the application.
Mike Cristaldi?
I approve the application, as with the rest of the board members.
Craig Palmisano?
I also agree with Jim Galantino's assessment. It's an aesthetic enhancement to the neighborhood, and the parking meet and exceed zoning requirements. I approve it.
Despina Hess?
I also vote yes as to the site plan presented for the reasons already stated.
Joe DiGirolamo?
I agree with Clem. I think having the 4th bedroom there is a problem, and it creates a parking issue, which I think we do have to address. I think parking issues are a big problem when you're building bigger places, properties in Margate. So I vote no.
Rich Patterson?
I also vote yes for the reasons stated.
The application passes 5-2. 6-2.
What did this need, just passed? Yes. Just a majority? It's only the D that needs the supermajority, is that right?
Yeah, only Ds. This is just like,
Okay.
so it's a planning board, essentially a town board vote.
next case is the Decatur Court Townhome Association, 106-110 North Decatur Avenue, Block 326, Lot 35.01, in the MF District to grant a C variance for rear setback, landscaping and site plan, and possible others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. Rubin?
Roger Rubin? Yes, I do. The subject property is an 8-unit condominium complex with 4 units in each of 2 buildings, and with the 2 buildings separated from each other by a 16-space, somewhat landscaped parking lot accessed via Decatur Avenue by 24-foot wide driveway directly across from the Margate Police Station. Currently, there is a deck and steps in front of each unit. The end units' decks are about 8 feet wide by 4 feet deep. The 2 middle units share a deck with a medial separation about 19 feet wide in all by 4 feet deep. There is about an 8-inch landscape band in front of the decks, which widens to a 5-foot deep landscape area by 4 feet wide on the side of the decks opposite the steps. Finally, there is a sidewalk measured by the architect at 4 feet 6 inches from the narrow landscape band to the outside of the curb. The black-topped parking lot with 8 spaces on each side measures at 60 feet curb to curb, broken down as follows: 18 feet deep parking space, 24 feet deep backup turnaround area, and 18 feet deep parking space. It is proposed per the plans of Peter Weiss Architect to enlarge and individualize the 8 decks so that each measures between 14 and 16 feet wide and 6 feet deep. To eliminate the landscape areas in front of and on the side of the decks, and to narrow the concrete sidewalk from 4 feet 6 inches to 3 feet 1 inch. The curb and the parking lot in between the curbs would not be touched or changed. In summary, larger decks, less landscaping, elimination of all landscaping in front of the buildings from the vantage point of the parking lot, and a narrower pedestrian walkway in front of the units. Actions required are site plan, wherein the planning board looks at pedestrian and auto circulation and safety, landscaping, and aesthetics. And a C variance for landscape area, 35% of the total lot is required. It is currently 31%. That would be reduced slightly more to 30% with the elimination in front of the homes, and this being slightly offset by a concrete patch in the rear being returned to landscape area. And a C variance for the rear setback, 20 feet is required. Presently is 25 feet to the decks closest to the rear, becoming 15 feet 4 1/4 inches with the expansions. Comments and considerations. As to the rear setback for the decks, it would seem to have no appreciable impact whatever on the houses to the rear by virtue of the orientation of those houses and the intervening landscaping by evergreen shrubs, tall mature deciduous trees, and a high fence. As to the landscape variance, we are talking about 1% of a total lot of 18,462 square feet or 185 square feet. Could this perhaps have been provided by a shortening in one or both dimensions of the proposed enlarged decks? If my measurements are correct, the total deck areas of all decks comes to 280 square feet, exclusive of steps, and the proposed is 540 square feet. Also, not counting the steps, could there be a slightly smaller deck be proposed, as well as other steps taken to at least keep the deficiency at no less than what it was? As a site plan matter, it seems unfortunate to completely lose the landscape areas in front of and to the side of the existing decks. Look at the north elevation view on Weiss's sheet A1. There is now no landscape area at all compared to what you saw on your site visits and see in the submitted photographs. It takes just a small area of landscaping properly maintained to make a large difference in appearance and aesthetics, not to mention permeability in a flood-prone area. Finally, now presently there are no wheel stops in the parking lot, so it is possible for cars to hang over the already narrow 4-foot 6-inch walkway. When the walkway is narrowed to 3 feet 1 inch, I would wonder if that is sufficient space for residents, visitors, delivery people, and especially elderly and persons with walking problems, or even those in wheelchairs to transverse. Note that the city engineer in his comment letter, which is attached, states, quote, "Details for the wheel stops should be provided, including dimensions and locations within the parking spaces. If approved, this must be a strong condition enforceable by the city engineer in first approving the plan, a revised plan, and then by the city afterward should the stops be built but later prove to be ineffective in terms of location or method of installation. Perhaps the board and the applicant could discuss, in addition to wheel stops, that the decks be reduced in depth by a foot to allow a wider walkway with perhaps a restoration of the small landscape strip. And also maybe the end decks could be reduced in width by about 2 feet to allow more landscape areas to be planned in. The goal of better outdoor space for the owners and residents of this very well-maintained property is a good one, and it can be attained, but maybe with some compromise that creates more safety, a better plan for permeability, and a more aesthetic outcome." The city engineer letter is attached, and if approved, its conditions should be a condition of approval, non-waivable.
Good evening, Eric Olson on behalf of the applicant, Decatur Court Townhouse Condominium Association. With me tonight is Peter Weiss, who has already been sworn and has testified earlier. He is still under oath. I would ask the board to accept him as an expert in the field of architecture.
And this both of them?
Yes. I am. Pete?
Your wife? Yeah.
For the record, will the board accept Mr. Weiss's prior testimony and his credentials as an expert in the field of architecture?
Good. Are you talking to me?
You don't want me to go through his credentials again?
Just stipulate to. Just stipulate to.
Yes.
Thank you. Pete, if you would walk us through the plan. Just as a bookkeeping item, with regard to the car stops, the association is okay putting in car stops as the board might require. So to the extent that this is approved, that condition is accepted by the association. All right.
Wouldn't we need the engineer to tell us how far back they would be?
Yeah, they would, I mean, Pete would presumably talk with our city engineer, be advised where to put them, and put them in there, so he'd approve them, so the city engineer would approve them.
That's fine.
The point that I was trying to make is that I spoke to the city engineer. Sometimes that you can't be sure how those car stops are going to work depending on the variety of vehicles that go in there. There may have to be some adjustments made after the initial plan.
Are the parking spots
Lined?
No.
They're lined.
No, I don't mean that. Are they assigned? Or can they park anywhere? Okay. Well, because otherwise the variety of cars wouldn't matter if they're not assigned. So if they're assigned, then we can, that problem can be addressed. Fine.
Hey, Pete, Peter, this direction, over here. Could you put them on an angle that they wouldn't interfere with that?
What on angle?
The parking spaces.
Well, that would take, you'd have fewer spaces.
How would it be if we just turn these?
Because that's the way it works mathematically.
Mathematically, it doesn't work?
Doesn't work, I'm sorry. No, that wouldn't work. The tightest configuration is always a right angle parking space. As soon as you start turning them, they take up more space.
I have a question.
Mike, if you put them in at an angle, you're kind of telling them to back out into the street. If you put them right angles, you're letting them do a K-turn and go frontwards out the street. That's really safer.
Well, the wheel stops will do the same thing. They've got plenty of room to park. This will stop them from pulling up too close. Yeah.
Is there a certain...
They got 24 feet behind them, so there's plenty of room for the parking.
Jim, is there a certain distance for the wheel stops?
No. It's a DOT.
There's no standard?
But my question, if you guys don't have any more, there's no flood vents on any of the structures. Maybe we should add a couple and save them some money on their flood insurance?
Well, I can suggest that. I mean, that structure is actually elevated. It's not a masonry foundation. It's stucco over some kind of sheathing, and it's all up on piles. So, I mean, it would be fairly easy to put in vents if they decided to do that.
I forgot it was built on pilings. It's been so long.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange building. Anyway, so the project, as mentioned, the parking lot is quite ample. You got 18-foot deep parking spaces. You have 24 feet between the parking spaces, which is a standard aisle width. The existing decks in front of the units are rather small. They're only about 4 feet wide. And at this particular development, that's really the only outside space that these units have. The backyards are basically unused because it's sort of common space, and it's, you know, it's just sort of a back step, and that's where they put the trash cans and stuff, I believe. So they wish to make the decks a little bit wider. The width, I think, is more critical than the length, if you will, front perpendicular to the street. So we were trying to get these as wide as possible, but still leave 3 foot or more for a walkway. So by making the decks 6 foot 4 wide, by the time you put a railing, you have about 6 foot of usable space on the deck. And currently the way the interior decks are set up, they're kind of sharing a deck. So we were trying to as Roger said, individualize the decks, make them a little bit wider, and then we made them a little bit longer too, so you could actually get some furniture out there, and maybe, you know, people could spend time out there and socialize. I wanted to talk a little bit about the landscaping. Right now, there's little strips of landscaping in front of the decks, and if you were at the site, you would have seen that, in fact, the decks cantilever out over the landscape bed a little bit, which gives them a little bit more width. I was going to do the same exact thing here. This little planter thing underneath is effectively the same width. It's just tucked up underneath the deck. So to that extent, it's not much different than what's there. It's just that it's under the deck, so it doesn't count as landscaping. So that was my thinking there. But we also lost a little bit because there's a couple pockets of landscaping between the decks currently, which are being removed in this proposal. And the decks are extended a little bit towards the front and rear of the building. The rear setback variance comes into play because the existing building is non-conforming, and the decks are supposed to meet the same setback as the principal building because they're more than, I think it's 18 inches above grade. So if I lowered the decks a little bit, I could have made it conforming. We wouldn't need the variance, but I was thinking that would look kind of silly to have 3 decks at this one height and then have the last one be, you know, a foot lower or something like that. So, you know, that's why we're basically requesting this rear yard variance for the decks.
Excuse me, Peter, you're not doing anything to the rear yard decks. They're not being changed at all in the rear yard.
No. Now, we need a variance for rear yard because these decks, the new decks, are into the rear yard setback by a few feet.
Oh, yeah, the rear, not the side.
Right, correct.
Those are sides, yeah.
And one other little thing to mention. Right now, there's a little piece of concrete at the end of the driveway. I don't know why it's there. It was probably a trash enclosure or something at one time. So we were going to take that out and make that landscaping. So that sort of offsets the landscaping that we're losing along the existing decks.
Peter, did you say that concrete patch is a trash enclosure now, or?
No, it's just a concrete pad. I don't know what it was before. It's just concrete now, so I don't know why it's there. Just, you know, so there's no reason to not take it out and make it grass or whatever.
I agree.
And then that would, you know, that's more visible, I think, from the street than the little patches of landscaping along the front of the buildings.
Well, I disagree with Roger on this one. I mean, I think to make those, it looks like a motel now. I think to give them bigger decks out front, I wouldn't worry about the 1% of the landscaping. That's just my opinion. I'd rather see the bigger decks and make it more of a homey feel for the people. They really don't have much outdoor space, and I think it would really improve the look of it for the city and for the people to have the bigger decks and not shorten them for 1% of the landscaping. They could take those 2 places in the front. Craig, what were you saying about those 2 squares in the front of the landscaping?
You could add some nice landscaping in the front.
Really jazz up those 2 squares by the front on the Decatur Avenue.
Something out front there.
Yeah, just really,
Where you drive in.
really emphasize them maybe, and
Well, that's already pretty well landscaped. There's a tree here, And, but yeah, I guess they could always do a little bit more.
Just more color and trees, cherry blossom trees or something like that. More elaborate.
Sidewalk is too small. I think there should be at least 3.5.
Yes.
That would be any better.
It's like 4 inches. We'll make it a half a foot.
One of the questions, Mr. Weiss, we're representative of the association with
Yeah, I have a question on this. The 3 just seems a little too small for me. I mean, the 3 feet sidewalk just seems a little too small for me. I mean, I would think if you could bring the deck in a half a foot or something. I mean, if the board has any other comments, to make it a little bit bigger than 3 feet.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's going to really be using that sidewalk.
No, they get out of the car.
You're going to come down your steps, get in your car.
That's true.
Yeah, it's not a sidewalk that the general public uses. The people who live there use it. That's it.
Well, that's why I asked for board participation.
I agree with you, Rich. I think the sidewalk should be wider. It's going to be used by anybody visiting these apartments, not just the residents. And each one of those walks serves 8 units.
I think the wheel stops are crucial if you're going to go with a 3-for-1 sidewalk.
Agreed.
Because the cars backing up down by the bay on Amherst Avenue, when cars are backed up, they encroach onto the sidewalk if they got a longer overhang than a normal car.
And the trucks with the tail?
The tail will hang over, if they back into the space. So they're crucial, the wheel stops.
Okay. I think, but if you've given the scenario that they don't have any now and cars could potentially be over the sidewalk, I'm sure in a lot of cases it's cut down to 3 feet now.
4'6" now on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I understand, but if cars sticking out, then it could be less.
Right now, there's a small planter area under the outside edge of the decks. The plan doesn't indicate that they're being saved, but the cross-section does. Are they being saved?
They're being eliminated.
The small planter.
They're under the deck, so they won't show up on the site plan.
But are they staying or not?
Yeah.
Would you consider getting a little corner planter alongside of each step, just taking a little cut out of the deck, putting a feature, would really soften it up.
Okay. We can ask the Condo Association about that. I don't have any objection to that.
Have minimal impact on the use of the
Well,
decks.
it's obviously not too big. I mean, at some point they start to eat into the deck quite a
Just
bit.
about 2 by 2, just so you get one interesting piece of greenery in there. Would help soften it up considerably.
Okay.
That's a condition that's important. The association's okay with that. That's a small area, and I guess we'll have to get some clarification of exactly what it is, but the association would not have a problem with that additional landscaping.
You know what I mean, Rich?
Oh, the square cutouts you're talking about? Yeah, I know what you mean.
So you're losing the
On
45...
either side of the steps.
Right.
They said they're agreeable to it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
If the board is
I'm sorry,
interested.
I fell asleep. I agree with what you're talking about. We had talked about it before, yes.
Yeah.
Like that?
Yes, on each one, right?
Squaring off the triangles.
Correct.
Decks, yeah.
And this one.
Yes. Well, that's...
Yeah, I know. But make this part of the, cut the deck there. To make a planer, to make a square planer.
Pitching.
Yeah.
Total pitch.
Yeah.
Unless the board has any further questions for Mr. Weiss, I'd like to put on one of the representatives of the association. Okay?
Cheryl Roth. S-H. S-H-E-R-Y-L. Roth, R-O-T like in Tom, H like in Harry.
Thank you, Cheryl. You're a representative of the condo association, correct?
Right, I am.
And the association consists of 8 separate unit owners, correct?
Yes.
And the condo association had to take a vote in order to go forward tonight, correct?
Yes.
And the condo association's bylaws require that 75% of the unit owners vote in favor of this proposal, correct?
Yes, 6 out of 8 of the owners voted for this project.
You needed 6 or you got 6?
6.
You
6
got
out of
6.
8, yes.
Just for the record, to be clear, you needed to have 6 votes yes, you got 6 votes yes, correct?
Yes. Yes, we got.
Got it.
And you understand that there may be one member of the association who wasn't in favor of this, but she voted no already, correct?
Actually, I think she voted yes. I think she might have voted yes. But we have 6. We have 6 definites.
That's all I have, thank you. Unless the board has any further questions, the applicant will rest.
Rich,
Yes.
you talked about widening the sidewalk. How did that come out?
It didn't come out, but
Well, I thought that the widening of the sidewalk was somehow mitigated by the adding of the additional landscaping at the corners of the steps.
no, I said I thought it should be widened by 6 inches, and I got 3 or 4 people saying that they thought it was okay, as it was. So,
Jim, what is the required width for passage of a wheelchair, for example? Do you think they should be? Is it 36 inches?
36 inches.
that's fine.
So, members of the board, you got 3 feet 1 inch, which is 37 inches. It's kind of tight. If I'm visiting somebody in this condo association with a relative, putting them in the wheelchair, first of all, by the way, there's no way to get up the curb.
I was going to
Let's
add
say-
that, Mr. Rubin.
But okay, I negotiate the curb. Now I got maybe a car sticking over it, I got 3 foot 1 inches, and I'm going to be jamming between a car and a deck sticking out. I don't know anywhere in Margate where we have 3 foot 1 inch sidewalks. I just don't understand how that could be considered safe for elderly, for children, for wheelchairs, for the public in general. I disagree.
How would 3 foot 6, how would 3 foot 6 sound?
That's better than 3 foot 1?
Roger,
3 foot
that
6.
3 foot 1 includes the curb, too.
The 3 foot 1 includes the curb, so you're pushing the wheelchair, and if you don't jam against the car, the wheel might go over the curb. And it's not just about wheelchairs, it's people.
They're 1 foot.
And Joe, it's not, I mean, we're not, this board is approving something not just for the general public who's visiting, the people who live there. I mean, they have to get out of their cars and walk a few feet, to their steps or to their deck. And
Roger?
I think it's unheard of to have such narrow stairs between a car and a deck.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, Roger, in your expert opinion, do you think 3.5 feet would be sufficient?
I'm really not an expert. I think 4 feet would be much better.
Wasn't that what's there now?
4 feet 6 is what's there now. 4 feet 6. But certainly 3 feet 6 is a lot better than
Let me just say,
3 foot 1.
wheelchairs are generally about 20 to 22 inches wide. You don't need a 36-inch wide,
The building inspector just said that a standard width is 36 inches
but a passageway.
for a wheelchair.
Well, a wheelchair isn't 3 feet wide, it would be this wide.
Jim, would you clarify?
You have 3 tiles, right? 3 1-foot tiles would be a walkway, correct?
They're considering this passageway to be an egress element for your condos.
Fine. What I'm trying to say is that a wheelchair is not 36 inches wide.
My feeling is, if you're going to take more sidewalk, you got 3 foot 6, say 42 inches, you're cutting the deck down to 5.5 foot now. They have a 4 foot deck now. So to me, it's cost prohibitive to build 1.5 foot more deck for so much money.
You know what?
They're going for a 4 foot.
You know what, Greg? It's not within the authority of this board to consider costs.
Okay.
Let me tell you something.
Okay.
They could narrow that 60-foot parking lot if they wanted. They could have a 4.5-foot wide sidewalk. They could have a 6-foot deck.
Oh, yeah,
They
right.
can narrow that 60 feet. And the reason they don't want to do it, I assume, is they don't want to spend that money. But they don't need 60 feet. You could have 18, 18, and 22, or even 18, 18, and 20 for a proper backup. And I'm assuming they don't want to spend, do you? Do you want to spend the money to narrow the parking?
Well,
So
I
you
think
can have everything you want, but it costs a little more money.
True, and the money ultimately is assessed against
But
the
it's
unit.
not within the purview of this board to consider
Understood,
those
Mr. Rubin.
things.
I'm
Money.
pretty sure the 24-foot is the standard width in
I
the
can't hear
ordinance. So I'm pretty sure 24-foot is the standard width in the ordinance.
You're pretty sure, but you're not
They'd have to get
positive.
a waiver to make it smaller. Some kind of engineering waiver.
Roger, if you had a 6-inch curb, a 3-foot-6 walk, you'd end up with a 5-foot-5 deck. Now, 5-foot motel balconies were standard for years, and they've worked on
Well, I know that
thousands of motel rooms.
Right, but there's a chair sitting there on a deck right now. You can't get in front of the chair, can you? The chair we looked at?
You get a chair, you won't get a chaise lounge, unless you do it lengthways.
No, but could somebody walk in front of the chair? I mean, it just didn't look like there was any room at all on those decks.
They're 4 foot. Decks are 4 foot.
Why don't they just, is there, Jim, a cheap and easy way to just enlarge the concrete walkways by 12 inches on each side, narrow the parking area to 58 feet, add a 12-inch piece of concrete in front? Now you've got a 4-foot, 1-inch sidewalk. You got the decks that you guys want. You spend a little more money, and you have safety. Can that be done, Pete? You guys are builders. Is that really tough to do?
That would be a monolithic curb you're building outside.
12-inch monolithic curb outside of the 6-inch existing
You'd have to
curb.
dig a curb out and then
Yeah.
fill it into the to the existing
Yeah.
curb. Right?
So now you have a 22-foot backup, which is more than you have in most parking lots in Margate. No angles. What?
18.
A standard parking space, we say, is 18, but it's not really. The standard car is way under 18.
It is.
It is.
But you have to hold it up to 18 on the spot.
Legally, it's got to be 18. The lines have to be 18. That's a good idea. Monolithic curve.
88 is 34 and a quarter.
He said it sounded good.
Oh, okay.
Monolithic.
How do you get a person in a wheelchair up? You got to lift the wheelchair on every land, 2 steps to get him in. Not I bet you they don't have a handicap spot there.
They don't have to go through.
I mean, the entrance rate of the driveway, it's 24, right? Because you drive in inside, right? It's 24.
Does it have to go to the curb?
No, you can't. There's no way. Even if they built a curb out, they're gonna...
We're going to take a break for 2 minutes? 5 minutes?
Take a break for a minute.
Let's take half an hour.
the number of people.
Eric, you ready?
Just to go back on the record, during the break, there was some discussion, so the record is clear. The applicant is amenable to making the sidewalks bigger to the extent they need to, with 11 inches of additional width times the length of each sidewalk on both sides of the parking lot, while maintaining the 6-foot 4-inch wide decks. If that ultimately is a condition of approval, that condition has been pre-approved by the condominium association board.
Good.
So say that again for the resolution's sake.
Sorry, Mr. Bergman. So the additional sidewalk that will be poured will be 11 inches wide down the length.
Wider. So what's the total?
4 foot.
4 foot.
4-foot sidewalks, yes. So now they're 3 feet 1 inch currently. We'd add 11 inches to that per side.
And the decks are going to be what size now?
6'4".
6 foot 4 inches.
They are. Okay.
And Eric, the additional, we mentioned the additional landscape boxes.
That's correct. Mr. Wozleski made a notation at the step corners, which the board would additionally landscape as a condition of approval.
I have one more question. Peter, you said the decks are going to be 6'4". On the other end, it's 6 foot 1/2 inches. Does it taper? Whatever it is. One end of the deck says 6 foot, and the other is 6'4".
On the one side, the curve is not parallel to the curve.
So you will make the curve parallel, and that deck will be also 6'4" on this end?
We can do that, Tuesday.
But you're saying 6 foot.
As long as they're 6'4", there's a 4-foot sidewalk.
Yes, 4 foot sidewalk.
Everybody on the board okay?
There's been one slight
I
potential for, not concern, but a question from the applicant. To the extent they wish to amend the application to make the decks bigger, is it our understanding that if the sidewalk is 4 feet wide, if they wanted to add more concrete to make the sidewalk wider, could they make the decks wider?
I think at that point, we need to know what the minimum turnaround space is. I don't know what it is. We kind of ignored that, but I think if you go any bigger, we might have to look into that.
Talking about maybe 6 inches wider.
I don't know what you need for the turnaround.
I think we'd have to reconsult with the city engineer and put the case back on in January or February.
We're going with what we've got now, and to the extent they want to change it later, we can. So,
But you're changing the plans to an extent that with notice that people haven't been able to review them.
Understood, Mr. Burke.
If it's more of a major problem.
Yeah, at this point, we're not changing the decks, we're just making the sidewalks bigger.
deck 6'4", 11 inches additional, making the sidewalks 4 feet wide throughout.
But if you wanted to find out from an engineer that you could do that, you may postpone this and make it bigger if they wanted to.
I think we'd rather go forward tonight because time is a factor. Obviously, we know the board is very
Right.
busy, and
Okay.
if we need to address that in the future, we will.
Okay. So that was a good point. They raised a good issue there.
If the board has any further questions, we have nothing further to add.
Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak? Public portion is closed. Any other comments from the board or questions? Stanley, would you read what we've come up with?
There'd be motion for site plan approval with C variances, landscape area required 35%, proposed 30%, rear setback requirement 20, feet, proposed 15 feet 4 1/4 inches, with conditions of all requirements that aren't waived by the city engineer's report of October 13th, 2015. Wheel stops locations will be as approved by the city engineer. Landscaping planters on either side of the steps by squaring off the corners of such. The sidewalk will be made bigger. There will be 4-foot sidewalks, and there will be 6-foot 4-inch decks.
Hear a motion? Hear a motion? Craig makes a motion, Mike seconds it.
Clem Wasleski.
With the changes proposed and accepted by the applicant, I think it's going to be a considerable improvement on the property, both practically and aesthetically, and maybe even in the future, putting awnings over each of those porches would be another step up. I vote yes.
Jim Galantino.
I think this meeting calls for a Gil Katz moment. With the well-thought-out and discussed we did today with this case, it was beyond anything I've seen about a deck. I can personally say that this will improve this site immensely, and I approve this project.
Margaret Gubernalty.
I approve the application with the modifications. I think the larger deck is a great addition to the condominium.
Mike Cristaldi.
As with the other board members, I approve.
Craig Palmisano.
Yes, with the changes made, I approve.
Despina Hess.
I vote in favor of the applications for all the reasons previously stated. I think this is an improvement to the neighborhood. I vote yes.
Rich Patterson.
I also vote yes. I think it's a great improvement for the property. I think it's going to be a much more livable property for the people there, and I congratulate them and good luck with it.
Thank you very much.
Application passes 7-0.
Can I make a motion to close the meeting?
Yes. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? None? Mike Cristaldi seconded it, and there was unanimous. I vote.
I was wondering why I was being...